What's up, everybody? It's Chad. I need a haircut and a beard trim, Lozano from Ask Chad Grassy Logic. I'm joined today with my buddy Joaquin from Mesilla Valley Pharmacy. Not a pharmaceutical or anything. They're actually a legitimate pharmacy, but I'll let him explain more of that once we get started into the show and everything. Today, we're going to be talking about them as well as the New Mexico legislative update. Texas wants checkpoints coming into Texas from New Mexico. We'll talk more about that. And state sales are up. We got a lot more to talk about as well, but that's just the title. And before I, continue on, thank you for joining me, Joaquin. It's pleasure to meet you and everything. And
thanks for having me, Mr. Lozano, Chad, on the Grassy Logic podcast here.
Appreciate it. Yeah, and Mr. Lozano is my dad. He was a teacher for like 25 years. So I really appreciate you joining me on the show and everything. And then before we go any further, please, introduce yourself to the audience. Tell them who you are, what you're about.
Cool. Guys, I'm Joaquin Acosta. I'm a local kid here from Las Cruces. For those of you who are Las Cruces viewers and or beyond, definitely grew up drinking the water here. East Picacho, Vista Middle School, Mayfield, NMSU, then UNM. Okay, so you see the UNM on my shirt. I'm a complete local kid, so let me just start with that for sure. But anyways, the whole point of pretty much me being here was a cooperative pharmacy program from New Mexico State University to University of New Mexico. It was like a pretty sweet ticket into the pharmacy school. So therefore we could come back and serve our local area as pharmacists. That was kind of like part of like just the terms of agreement there. It wasn't necessarily like a contract or anything like that particularly, but anyways, that's how I'm a local kid back here in a UNM shirt on a podcast as a pharmacist right now. So in the short term, otherwise, we've got Mesilla Valley Pharmacy downtown. Currently, I'm the pharmacy manager there. I'm the CEO of the company. Also, our sister company, Farm True, which we are currently growing for the cannabis side as we kind of sit here and have united cannabis and pharmacy in a pretty unique way, which hopefully we get to touch on a little bit more here in this podcast. Yeah, so that's basically it. Two sister companies, Mesilla Valley Pharmacy and Farm True. Farm True being the cannabis company, as cannabis applies to the Grassy Logic podcast in the context of the podcast. But we're trying to make it all one thing and make it less ambiguous in terms of our situation particularly. So be happy to touch on that for sure. And thanks again for having me, man.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's, a great explanation and everything. There's a lot of components that went into where you are now. So, I mean, I'm great that we get to dive in and kind of figure out everything because, yeah, this is something new. So with that being said, everybody, let's get into the episode. Let's talk about Mesilla Valley Pharmacy. If you guys don't know, no pharmacy in the nation sells cannabis, or medical cannabis, from my understanding, and they're the only ones who did that. However, there's another challenge that they had. They're right next to a charter school, and the city really kind of, they put a limit of how far you can be between each other, but they did it for schools. However, you can go into a hearing and they can give you an exemption, and they actually got the exemption, which is a great thing to hear. I mean, they're a legitimate pharmacy. So I'm not going to talk for them. I'll let you go ahead and tell everybody how did this all start?
Sure. So basically, I guess I have to kind of bring you guys into the context of it all. To me, I have to just kind of take it back to probably like 2014, really. So we're leaving to pharmacy school, and I say we as in pretty much our New Mexico State class up, particularly like me and one of our partners now, Jeffrey Stewart, a local boy. We went up together and went to UNM. Basically, they had a business degree that you could simultaneously get for free with the pharmacy degree. So we decided to be ambitious, me, Jeff, and our other partner now, Trey Howard from Nacogdoches, Texas, basically to embark on the business degree as well as the pharmacy degree simultaneously. So we bit off a whole big log there with the intent at that time of like eventually trying to get our own pharmacy going. We didn't necessarily know what it meant for us or anything at all. Like that is literally how it came up. It was just like, all right, well, it's free. We're only gonna be here once, kind of a YOLO. Let's try to just get this thing done and see if we learn anything. And then obviously like it started, I think it just got our clocks working in the right direction. I can see, I guess some people consider like MBAs just kind of I don't know, some people consider it a waste of time straight up. And like, I can see all of the different logical arguments around the whole thing, but we went through the school part and we did that part just to go. So in the pharmacy school's a 4-year deal. The MBA thing was like 3.5 years within that. in the last year of that 2018, we wanted to actually enter the business school competition that they have annually. It's the UNM Anderson School of Management business plan competition. It's like an annual thing. They just recruit pretty much like entrepreneurial. They have like an entrepreneurial track and it's like a technology track. So two different kind of like styles of operators, obviously. So, I mean, if you've got a program and a code and you're taking it up all the way there, you're going to probably go on the programmer side or that tech side. And then obviously like the entrepreneurial side was us. I think there was like representative from like Oregon Mountain back in the day. It was like a while back. And there was like a burger place and some other stuff. And so anyways, there was a group of, I guess, like kind of a Shark Tank style pitch deal at from just renowned people, and I guess in Albuquerque business world that judged the competition. So it took us a year of time, but we saw a gap in the Las Cruces market for long-term care pharmacy, which nobody has any idea what that is, and pretty much nor really should they, right? By any means. We learned in our little kind of like weird angling of trying to figure out how to open up a pharmacy that a long-term care pharmacy like just was advantageous in terms of like trying to be a lean startup. So we were trying to not spend a whole lot of money up front and find a way to generate more money than we would be spending. And retail pharmacy, I mean, even if you were to just type in on Google, how do you start a retail pharmacy? The first thing they're going to say is location. And like, when you really put that in a whole context, like, right, it just costs way more to do that in that regard, particularly. And there was other ways that we saw that pharmacy, you could like make money and still fill gaps pretty much. And basically what it amounted to was a business plan centered around long-term care pharmacy in Las Cruces, where we currently had no access to that in our nursing homes or our long-term care facilities like assisted living. I mean, even like the jail, they have like long-term care. So from skilled nursing all the way down to like group homes, vet clinics, they're under pharmacist management. Obviously, the ones with people are under like long-term care, and they take extra kind of intensive medications. Las Cruces is a retirement town for what we all know. I mean, as we're talking about on the cannabis podcast, but I think this will kind of bring in a little bit more context when you're talking about our patient base in general and just Las Cruces and the whole thing. So I think it's important, but basically we're looking at long-term care, and we're looking at Las Cruces. There was a pharmacy in Albuquerque and there was a pharmacy in El Paso that were servicing the town then. And for our giant senior population, I mean, that seemed like just a lot of, I guess, great opportunity for a young entrepreneurial, group to try to find a niche. And so anyways, we did the business plan competition. We luckily somehow pulled off a win in that. We worked hard and we identified whatever. And so that was cool to be able to geek out on that part and kind of learn the planning of business and taking the time to really try to think about it. But the thinking and doing are 2 billion different things, like in 2 different dimensions. So obviously, pretty much we show up with our $25,000 of seed money and our new degrees and licenses down to Las Cruces. We opened up a little small 800 square foot long-term care pharmacy, closed door on Wyatt Drive. And that took another 6 or 8 months to really get licensed up and going, really. And we were trying to base that we were going to hopefully get some business with long-term care facilities here in town at that time, that we were like going to learn how to, or that we had been transitioning some business for from the pharmacist consulting like avenue that we were taking, which I'm not even talking about that. But anyways, we just expected that we were going to kind of hopefully have some business there waiting for us. I, at that time, worked for CVS. My partner worked for Walmart. Other partner worked for Albertsons. We were hoping that like the plan was one person was going to quit. The other 2 would help kind of sustain, and, we'd be able to get that small long-term care pharmacy off the ground enough to kind of get everybody out of their corporate jobs sooner rather than later. But it was still up in the air as far as, okay, we really have to like ink some contracts to even get like anywhere competitively, and this is going to be a process. So as we're looking at that whole thing, and we didn't have any business coming for us, and we're working our corporate jobs, the 2018 Farm Bill comes through, and all of a sudden we're looking at I was part of the Arrowhead. It was like this. It's an Arrowhead startup, NMSU branch.
I think I heard of that.
So
yeah.
Shout out to them. for sure all the way. And I'm sorry that I don't have everybody's names written down off the top of my head, but honestly, I was using that incubator to just kind of try to create some relationships and talk to people. And at least the nice part about, you know, those conversations I was able to kind of like see a little bit of more of the glue between pharmacies, independent pharmacies here in town, or here in the state of New Mexico. All of a sudden we're just like selling CBD like hotcakes. Like they were, and I'm sure you guys saw that everywhere. But basically, it seemed to be a very good pharmacy niche. And at the time, like we were like, interesting. So there was obviously some people that were looking into the whole growing it and the whole deal. And basically, my roommate at the time, Lucas Ogos, one of my roommates, and the other one, Mikey Romero. Basically, Lucas was the farmer, and he had their family Ogos Farms and the whole thing. And so basically, I mean, it kind of formulated to the fact of, let's try to feed this guy some way to grow us some hemp products, right? And so we were looking at, all right, perhaps we were in the business plan state of mind. So it's like, all right, we can grow some hemp as an agricultural commodity, use this hemp to hopefully, in a perfect world that never happened, get us some more funds to get to the next place of actually producing our own products and doing that kind of thing, and then selling out to the masses. And we were hoping to just stepwise make that happen. And really, obviously, basically, no, it didn't happen that way. And so we kind of invested some heavy time and obviously money and resources into the hemp side of things. And we formulated it under a company called Farm True to keep the liability and everything within a company and try to keep a structure and organization going and get some branding going around that. And so that's basically where we, you know, incubated the idea, was really just trying to find a way to initially grow, sell, flip hemp. And we thought it was just going to work like that. Funny. And I mean, I will just openly admit that. I think it's funny. It's cool to just see that part. And so obviously on that note of things, I think it was like the summer of 2019 or something, we're growing in the field. And basically I'm up there in our Garfield grow every single day, just like trying to learn how to promote it. I'm messing around with all the marketing stuff on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter every single day, driving up to the farm and back. And we're just hitting it. And that was some of the cooler parts where I started finding some of the cool parts of the industry, like in terms of kind of how we may or may not be fitting and stuff, and kind of seeing how some of the healthcare operators started operating, and ended up getting to have some cool conversations with like healthcare oriented people. LinkedIn was a cool place to actually meet people back in those days. Like I ended up getting onto the board, serving as a board member for the International Society of Cannabis Pharmacists for like 2 years. And so we would just, I guess, meet and convene, and the whole, like the big goal was recruiting more pharmacists, creating more training for pharmacists. Like it was a good kind of uniting point for that, because pharmacists in our own little branch of healthcare are a funny little branch that's kind of like really connected to the community there. If you're looking at like just like a regular community access point, really, because obviously hospitals, you go there when you're like super sick, and then pharmacies, we're kind of there when people are doing all right or doing kind of all right. So
getting better.
Exactly. Like you're still taking care of yourself for the most part, or everything like that. So forgive me for like losing my train of thought, but
it's just you guys' timeline of, you know, how you came about.
So let me retrace. Basically, can you retrace where I was?
Yeah, 20. I mean, it was a lot of information, so I don't blame you losing.
We're hitting the hemp field.
There you go.
Ending up on the board of this pharmacy thing, and we're seeing the medical kind of side of it from that side. I was doing like a little bit of a podcast that we were doing through the company to interview medical professionals in the cannabis place. So from California and Florida and some of these other places, we actually got to talk to some providers. Bonnie Goldstein is like an actual top cannabis doctor in like pretty much USA history. So she was one of the cool ones that we actually really got to talk to. She's doing pediatrics and autism and epilepsy and a lot of interesting stuff. And she's seen a lot of use cases since like the late 90s. And so it's very cool to know there's prescribers that are out there battling like that. So that was 2019, just kind of hearing how they've been navigating everything. And so that was kind of setting us up, I guess, more clinically in the mind for how kind of to treat with cannabis, how to use cannabis, how it may or may not like help people. And so I think that was really some good positive benefit, even though the field of growing was not like our specialty by any means. So after taking that L pretty much, we got into the point of trying to actually make products. So we had purchased CBD isolate. We had Seco Spice for the kind of the farm. That was kind of the farm portion of it through Lucas and his family, but they also had like Seco Spice itself is like an FDA registered like factory place. And so basically they have like their own lab up there and everything. So stainless steel and everything, we were able to just at least use that for a place to incubate our time to do our experiments and stuff for our initial product formulations. And I mean, a long time over this, I mean, you know, heating ovens and everything, and we're just sitting there melting things and putting things together and whatnot. And basically that's how it initially started, was just trying to get formulations that would like stay together and stuff. And we were hoping to apply like our pharmaceutical kind of like, I guess, backing to kind of that situation, because you're mixing a kitchen with almost like a herbalist with your pharmaceutical into a almost like an unknown gray area place where when you look at the cannabis industry as a whole, like I know I'm citing a study from like 2 or 3 years ago, but a JAMA study, which I bet is still probably pretty dang true. It's like that you're sitting between like 50 and 70% of products, because I don't remember the number, are like literally considered mislabeled. So being right, their THC percents are off, their CBD percents are off, everything's off, and you don't know what's going on in there. And I mean, obviously that's the part of the industry that I hope we can get to protect and address, and that kind of gets better and more standardized universally, like globally. Like it really, like that's probably the standard that it needs to be. If you're looking at an active pharmaceutical ingredient, like your standards are pretty standardized, like as far as that. So I don't know how that all is supposed to look or where that means to that. But when we are relating it to how we're going to like look at it, how we're going to dose it and operate it, we were really trying to find something consistent and something that was going to pretty much work as far as our formulations. And we were pushing the pharmacist formulated side of our CBD products. And so we wanted to have our angle that we hit all our dosing and our, I guess, recipes for attacking like inflammation with our topical, and or just like knowing our dose and being confident about what we were going to educate people about as far as CBD was concerned. We really stuck with CBD isolate. We were sourcing CBD isolate from Eagle Moon. They were an isolate supplier for us, and they were great. So really we just pretty much ended up kind of trying the whole mix of products at first. And we had like 30 different SKUs, and it was just a big mess of everything everywhere. Like it was, I guess, the ambitious way to do it, of course. And like some people you hear, I guess, like start with one product, make it perfect, get the package great, do all these things right, like get there, get that good, rinse and repeat from there. And I mean, we did the opposite way, and like we started, cutting the fat of the products that weren't working for us. We couldn't make dog treats, specifically treats, work very well. It wasn't worth the time to continue to try to invest in that, in my humble opinion. So we cut it. Like we really like the tinctures because we can do a lot of medicine and a lot of consistent dosing and have great storage and stability with a tincture in an amber vial out of heat and light, right? Those last forever. They're good to work with, especially for people who, in our like kind of patient segment. So it was a good place to focus a lot of our efforts. I still highly recommend that for the entire cannabis community as a whole, and those who are interested in cannabis. Like it's a very effective way to dose and to measure dose, as long as you have like a graduated dropper and you can sit there and measure inherently every time how much you had. I mean, granted, unless you were doing like a specific edible that's obviously going to be portioned to a particular dose, yes, that's great. Assuming the mixture and the blend is completely uniform and homogenized. And I mean, it is what it is. It's just, that's where I'm referring to mislabeling and misbranding and things, because you don't quite always know. Some people can say like, I got this edible from this place, got the same edible the next time, it didn't do anything, yada, 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 this on and this forth. So we're trying to kind of, well, at least still this is still a problem. This was a problem back then. It's still a problem. So that's the only reason I'm really bringing it up in the context of the conversation right now.
Yeah.
But looking at the product formulations, how you're going to try to make something work. We were looking at CBD MD and Green Roads, obviously the health brands that were doing it big. CBD MD out of New York or wherever, and Green Roads out of Florida. And I liked the way that they were doing it. Like, you could see some of the influence from our labeling from CBD MD itself. Like, I was sitting there on Photoshop doing the whole thing, learning every skill one at a time to try to get it all figured out. And like, that's basically what we started doing to chip away at the block for, all right, we have a product, we need a recipe, we need a package, we need a label. And then all of a sudden we did it all at once, and then kind of chipped back and started refining to our liking from there. I can see the part of it's a fun art to it all. And to me, that's where I draw the fun in it versus the kind of adversity that goes around it, because it's fun to try to find like solutions and stuff like that. And definitely knowing that I don't think there's many other people in the world and or around that may have an educational backing with like a pharmacy degree that really could like try to like really work it right now. So there may be like a small subset of people kind of in my like specific niche that are even operating in that. We really want to lean into that and see where it was going to take us. So we wanted to push like eventually our CBD products into other pharmacies. So we were looking at independent pharmacies in New Mexico, and that's kind of where we halted some of the push. So I'll bring that back to Mesilla Valley Pharmacy. So Mesilla Valley Pharmacy was in that long-term care place. We got offered basically a once in a lifetime opportunity, right? From our partner, Mikey. His family had that building that we were in. It was their insurance building for like 40, 50 years before basically somehow this offer came that, you know, hey, Mikey's grandpa, Leo, had been, you know, really advocating for the fact that he would love to see us put a pharmacy in that building. And he like pushed, like he really, really pushed. And, you know, it happened. And so that was the cool part. It was basically between Leo and Mikey, those guys figured out how to help us with making that situation work. We went to the bank and we were like blessed enough to get a little bit of money going there. And we were part of the downtown revitalization kind of like kickback project. So that added in some more funds to being able to do a nice place. And, you know, that TID funding that was able to provide for that, which may or may not still exist. I don't necessarily know the current stuff, but it was superiorly a blessing. And, you know, taking downtown into that consideration and knowing what it has done for us and what we can do back for it in turn, it is definitely something we have tried to like truly embrace, because I mean, it like Las Cruces needed a downtown, Las Cruces needed a pharmacy. I hope that we can say that we are helping to give back to those specific needs. So basically we remodeled that place downtown, where we are now in Mesilla Valley Pharmacy. For those of you who know, in that parking lot while we were remodeling is when we started selling our CBD products, like kind of just straight direct to consumer. So we popped up a tent, branded tent and stuff, and we started betaing out our products. We were giving out free CBD gummies, had a gummy bear mascot. We had called him Dr. Bear. We did the whole thing. And we were just gauging people's particular interest for CBD products and stuff. It was, and back then it was just funny because it was still very raw, and like there was just a lot of, I guess I would say the same thing, curiosity and confusion as in regards to CBD and or hemp. And then at the time, obviously like, oh, but it's not cannabis, I can't touch that. Like, and there's still people that do that, but it's less now. So basically we got to spend that time about, you know, some of the times of, hey, your cream was, I don't know, too chunky or something, like whatever little modifications, we were able to make some tweaks, which was nice to actually like get that part of our product line to a place that, you know, we could consistently give the same product that we wanted to give, like basically, and that we were proud of and we could stand behind for our little unit of products that we were doing. So anyways, we, the pharmacy opened finally. Me and Chad were talking about this before, noting to the, I think it was 2021 Southwest Cannabis Cultivation Conference. We threw that as Farm True right when we finished our remodel. So we were finishing our remodel we had no idea cannabis was going to get legalized in the state of New Mexico. We were doing CBD and we were like at each other's throats trying to remodel the pharmacy and just get that thing done. So all of a sudden we get hit sideswiped from boom, let's go ahead and wreck. Cannabis is going wreck. Like, good luck, everybody. And so like we had pushed hard and farm through like everything, like our inherently like everything was fully invested there as far as myself. Like I was there, it was just like frustrating because I mean, to start, like MVP got all the resources, time, money, resources, love, all of it. Then you put that on the back burner to go into the hemp field and eat crap for a while and do that. And MVP's kind of back burner because we still got to keep our corporate jobs, keep the money coming in. And then we're back burner again. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're going to miss an opportunity unless we find a way to like step on the gas a little bit. So basically we were just, I mean, trying to at least hope that we can meet more people in the industry and everything like that. So we were trying to at least add some value to the fact that we had a space, 4,000 foot renovated space, and it was completely randomly clear for us to put chairs and speakers and recruit people. So it was basically, we had that conference, which I have talked to people that I haven't particularly entirely met before in the cannabis industry that were there at that conference. And so I think it's cool. Like, I think it's cool that people were able to come and it added value for people at the time. And I regret that it kind of dissipated to what it was, but for what it was in that day, I appreciate that. The RLD came down and spoke. So I think we were trying to like really just create more access for all the farmers and the Southern New Mexico cannabis people to just have a better shot at that. As we're talking about here, even in the future, like the border checkpoint creates kind of a little bit more of a bottleneck for the industry. You could say the North is more favored because if your operation is completely above the checkpoint, because I mean, some of those things, but just kind of alluding to that in some degree. I know, you know, plenty of people North and South, so it's not North versus South. It's just interesting that a checkpoint like can really create some problems.
Huge issues. Yeah.
So basically we had this conference about the cannabis cultivation, and we that kind of like spurred off, all right, we feel pretty involved and that we can kind of jump in when we see fit. And so we were looking at trying to get the Garfield grow where we were did the hemp certified for or licensed for the growing production license for cannabis. So we shot that in there. We saw already all the drama with the water rights and the office of the state engineer that everybody already understands. So we don't even need to go there. And so we were letting that incubate. Lucas was managing that part, and he was going to manage that license and try to acquire it. And so simultaneously, we were eyeing the that new manufacturing license and the rule that had came out with the topicals and the edibles and everything like that last like December. Boom. So we see that, and then we're trying to go into getting the licensing. So we go to the city of Las Cruces and we go to their little cannabis meetings that they were having, and we were told that we needed to put an appeal to our location to get any of these licenses that we wanted, because we were parked next to this charter school downtown, the New America School, which I'm sure for a lot of the people that have, if you guys have heard Mesilla Valley Pharmacy and you're in the cannabis industry, you probably have some sort of idea about this part as we get into that. So really, like,
kind of in the current times now.
Exactly. So now you caught up a couple of years and you can kind of see the whole point as we blab. And thank everybody for listening. For who hasn't, I don't know if you have to cut me off, please cut me off.
No, keep going. I mean, there's a huge timeline with everything. So, but now we're two to the date and everything.
And now it's gonna just
now everything just keeps going
on down.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you guys. So yeah, if you need that intermission, bathroom break, or whatever, I'll still be talking probably like 2 minutes.
There's a pause button. Don't worry.
And so we hit basically we were told that we can't acquire any sort of cannabis licensure whatsoever at that location downtown because we were parked next to a school, and the state law had set out that you cannot have a cannabis establishment within 300 feet of a school. So basically, we wanted to outfit this building that we had downtown. We actually had it outfitted 800 square foot side part for our cannabis manufacturing lab, so we didn't have to do it out of that Seco Spice location over there, 35 minutes east. And so basically we were trying to get out of there, so we put the whole nice I guess like the food grade floors and walls and roofs and everything, and we food graded the heck out of that room. and made it perfect for CBD manufacturing. And so that was already part of the build out. So we knew that manufacturing room was there and we were confident in it basically. And we wanted to obviously get into the manufacturing the cannabis products. And then we had still some more unused rooms in the back that we wanted to try to squeeze in a dispensary. So basically we wanted both licenses of manufacturing and retail. So that's where the CCD had said, well, we need to go figure it out with the city of Las Cruces and then get back to them. Is basically boom. So CCD's on pause for a good 9 months as we go through this whole shebang. And we start with the city. They say the only way to try to get around there is a way technically around the
ordinance.
Yes, the ordinance, which is called a variance process. If you can prove pretty much like an economic hardship, they had some inclusion criteria for that. So basically, if you can prove X, Y, and Z things, potential to spurt job growth, and there's one more, I'm sorry. But basically, if you could prove those things, then you could be potentially selected to or voted to get this variance appeal, which would allow you to operate your business accordingly. So that variance exists for whatever zoning rule it is. It's not just cannabis. So exactly. So basically our situation was specific to cannabis. And so we submitted the variance appeal. They said, okay, we have until like January 21st of last year or something to get in whatever packet the city needed to even be able to get on their agenda for like April. So we got all that taken care of, submitted, and then we get into April and all of a sudden the city calls us and they're like, well, you need to come pick up the sign to notify the public of the appeal that you're trying to do, because it's obviously a like city thing.
Yeah.
And so we put out our sign and everything, and a couple days later that sign gets posted on like the Las Cruces community watch page. Pretty much the rest from there is truly history, but like, yes, we got to see like a fun, interesting angle of how cannabis was going to be received. I mean, just in general by a different part of, I think, Las Cruces' population, because I mean, I don't know if people were particularly one way or another and kind of hush hush about it, but I feel like people really started to take a side here because we were parked next to a school. Somebody made a note that this was pretty much going to be dangerous against like every other particular regard, and we could quote it or something, but to whatever fashion of it's bad for the kids, it's
what about the children?
like against religion and everything. So basically, it was a war cry for some people, and for us, we were like, "Whoo, okay." And so we noticed, like, I mean, some in those comments of literally that post, just people that were one way or another, and I guess to us, it just spurred that attention of, okay, this is an interesting thing. And basically we prepared our appeal to go up against the Planning and Zoning Committee, who would initially hear that variance request. And it was like the day the appeal happened, all of a sudden we have like 3 news stations in there and in the pharmacy, like trying to interview us before the thing and for the appeal that night. And all of a sudden, like, just turned into this huge hype thing. And we were like, all of a sudden, like, feuding against the school, and there's like one and there's the other, and it was like us versus them, and it was just crazy the way like this thing cooked up into a thing. And like personally, like me and the staff at the school, we have never had any particular issues or anything like that. I think we've had a pretty generally respectful relationship as neighbors and business neighbors this entire time, and they felt the same way. And I mean, really, it was just crazy the way it got completely pitted against each other that day for the appeal. And so all of a sudden, like, my adrenaline's kicking in, and like everything's obviously just like kind of everybody's all stirred up. And so we go into the appeal, and we had hired somebody to come and speak on behalf of us. And I mean, basically that appeal did not go so well. And the community spurt that happened, generating from that Facebook post, actually worked against us, and we lost the initial variance appeal to the Planning and Zoning Committee. So regardless of the fact that my adrenaline was hyped up and I'm like sitting there sweating and drenched in sweat for 4 hours the entire time, I mean, we were slapped with the Vietnam argument, and this stuff's way stronger than it used to be. And let's, bring all our kids up to the podium and say you're killing these people argument. And it was a crazy appeal to emotion, and they emotionally appealed that room, and the Planning and Zoning Committee did not vote in favor of that. But it's all public record. You can literally go back and watch what happened that
It's
night.
on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't have to go through it all, but it was a fiasco. And it was, frustrating, embarrassing, all those things on top of it all, right? So we lose, and basically we find out that you can appeal it, right? So there's still more appeals. So that's when we're like, all right, okay, let's try to formulate a new appeal and go from there. So that's from our, I guess, just from the experience that we were trying to draw from. At this point, we realized we kind of had to take it upon our own hands in terms of devising the strategy to kind of win over now City Hall, or the City Council, who the appeal was going to get escalated to. And so, from there, that's when we started really pushing about, basically, we were trying to work within our own niche of supporters because before the appeal, we were hyped. Before the April appeal, we were trying to put some hype to it and kind of bring some people there and call some people there. But I felt like, looking back, like that was a half-assed job for sure. Excuse my language, but basically, yeah, that initial one, we deserved to lose. So that's fine. And we figured that out. We lost. So we, at least at that point, we were able to, let's get some surveys out there for all our entire people that we've served. Like, we, at this point, have been existing as Mesilla Valley Pharmacy for like a little over a year. We had a pretty hot little time there because COVID vaccines were obviously just such a huge need for the entire community that we got to have a lot of face-to-faces with people and meet a lot of new people and get a lot of new, at least lead prospect kind of patients there. And so we're really trying to tap into the people that we already knew from that, which was a group of under 10,000 people. It was right about 10,000. But that's where we were looking. We're like, okay, if we can win over somehow some group within this 10% of the town that we've already talked to that know us, perhaps we can come into City Hall and persuade these guys to see kind of the other side of what we were trying to do. So basically we were, you can go watch that part on YouTube and the whole deal for the resolution in September for us ending up as the first retail pharmacy in the country to be next to have a cannabis dispensary, on top of sharing a wall with the school, which is still separated by 1 foot gap, by the way, but still it was basically, the 300 foot, that was the black and white for the initial Planning and Zoning Committee. 300 feet was law established for X reason. And so we had to find pretty much every way to convince that it wasn't. So we eventually, we had some of our patients, some of our stronger patient advocates that showed up and showed out for us at the Planning and Zone, or at the City Council hearing in September. That was 5 months later. We had, I think, over 200 surveys and 200 letters to each city council member signed from our people, and we just turned them all in. And I think in that time, there was a cool little, I guess, it was a flower childlike energy that we could see awakening with some of the subsets of our patients. So I thought that was a special little thing to kind of notice and or tap into. So we go to City Hall. Trey, our CFO, and one of our partners, he's a pharmacist downtown, but busy guy, definitely, he went and did the actual appeal to City Hall. So he's the guy that was talking the white coat warrior that day. And so he represented us as us in a very, I think, very good manner. And for those of you who haven't seen it, please go watch that appeal video and everything like that. But we had probably, at least 5 or 10 patients who we really were hoping that were going to come and be able to talk on behalf of us and have some nice, good arguments to say, because we had people that we were, just dealing with by the nature of us, and they had seen what we were going through. So we're sitting there on we're just sitting there doing our regular business, filling scripts and stuff for people. And if they were more in tune to like talking about the appeal or had a really good opinion on it, it was like, all right, who's this person? Let's write them down. You know, like they've got a good voice. They've like, we need to get people like that there so they can advocate for what's going on, because there's just, that's the problem we're trying to address and trying to just show in a different light, rather than cannabis next to a school and kids being sold cannabis and or giving cannabis in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, for us, we are a retail pharmacy. We, on any given day, dispense a Schedule 2 through 5 controlled substances, anywhere from Adderall to fentanyl to oxycodone, morphine, hydromorphone, all the good stuff, right? Which is, not as good. And so basically, no kids are getting that on any other given day in our parking lot. And that was a big part of our argument. We felt like, particularly, you know, I mean, even you could say like where the buildings were with each other, the front door of the school to the front door of the actual dispensary was pushing 300 feet. I don't remember what the number was, but you know, it was a 300-foot walk. And anyways, so we also, the big variance thing for us, like it was an economic hardship. Like the planning and zoning guys, I think initially were like, well, you guys just picked the wrong spot. And that was the point. I don't think we conveyed at all in the first meeting at first, was the spot. We were lucky, like this, we were blessed and lucky. And like, we had people that had seen us eating some complete crap that like tried to help, basically. And that's what it took. Like, it wasn't some sort of like anything like that. Like, so basically, I mean, that's where that economic hardship was. Like, if you probably have, I'm sure you probably touched and talked about this with multiple operators and multiple people in the industry and everything, that how many properties are being bought up and leased by cannabis companies that are still waiting to even get zoned up and ready to go. Like, properties are being scooped up all over the place. Like, it's more expensive to build than it is to lease. Like, I mean, exactly. So the market's already getting swiped everywhere because everything's getting picked up and there's nowhere else to pick. So we have one location that was ours with just a place that we just need to get right there. Just put the license in there. We can't spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get another place to renovate it. We can't recreate Mesilla Valley Pharmacy and do this thing. It doesn't exist by itself. One cannot exist without the other. Like, they have to be together. Like, there's only one way that's going to happen. And if we didn't achieve it in that particular amount of time, it didn't feel as special as we could say that we're sitting here now, like satisfied, like to at least be at that point. I mean, when we're looking for a break, but basically, like we made it to City Hall. We got the appeal with economic hardship, and we also had put in a deal about spurring jobs. And we opened the dispensary softly, like late November, early December, and since then, I mean, just to even keep that flow and the flow that's kind of been coming up since that point. I mean, we've already opened up a lot of jobs. Yeah. So that's kind of crazy to see how that works. It's cool to be able to give back to the community in terms of both, like, at least giving jobs back to people that are obviously back here taking care of the community, staying here, living here, giving back in good ways, have families. And so those are very important things to us. And it happened that way. So, I mean, basically, I think we argued on the 2 of the 3 factors, and we were able to show that obviously out of those 2 of the 3 factors, plus the fact that I would say we are the possible safest drug keepers that could have actually had that argument. Like, there was not a precedence to be set that if you granted us this variance next to the school, then, you know, it's not like somebody can come in there and just easily claim, like a Roe v. Wade, that's the precedence or something. Yeah. So it was cool to finally convince our unique situation to the city council and to go through all of that. I think it makes that story, and in terms of the Grassy Logic podcast and everything, like, I think hopefully you guys get that part from us. Like, if you go and look at our Mesilla Valley Pharmacy stuff and you actually are like going on that chain of things, like, you will get it, I think, a little bit better as to why this podcast exists and why I'm happy to be talking to Chad. And like, so we're talking about basically now we have a dispensary. It was cool to be able to be the first ones to get there, but all right, cool. That's just the start. And so like actually like out there, boots on the ground part is the cool, like even the crazier part, because obviously in a pharmacy, we are treating sick people. I mean, we're treating, patients who have health conditions of all kinds. And so we're seeing the different angles. And so I would say, I mean, the numbers are general, but on a general, like in a general number, about 50% of the US population has tried cannabis in their life. So that's 50% of people who have never tried it. So even if you break it down to Las Cruces, right, that's 50,000 people at any given time who probably haven't tried it. Right. So, I mean, if you are a cannabis heavier user or a more experienced cannabis user, you probably are more likely not going to be like at my store buying cannabis. Like I mean, if you needed a medical question in a particular, you can always call, but it may not be like the place that you feel like is the best for you, like where you're going to get a billion different options and all that kind of stuff. Ours is a tailored, personalized experience for people that are looking for obviously solutions to like their health needs and wellness needs. So like we hope to give that time and that value there. And I mean, just kind of create that different space for ourselves where I think that's in the cannabis industry, there's a lot of free open water there. So for all of you guys, I want everybody to know that, like, please go take care of all the people who are cannabis confused and cannabis curious, because there are so many people out there in the state and the country that, yeah, exactly, are in that part. They may or may not have heard it. They may or may not have tried it before they had kids 40 years ago, and they're boomers now and all these things. And it creates that, a lot of questions. I mean, you want to find somebody reputable that you can trust and stuff like that. And for other cannabis operators or anybody like that, I know so many people in the cannabis industry is bleeding with empathy, and people understand people very well here. So I'm just, from the healthcare side, I guess that's just my, little perspective and niche, because it's a weird bubble where doctors are halfway scared to talk about it, halfway just as cannabis confused and cannabis curious as that 50% of the population who's never tried it. Because I guarantee you, most of those doctors who made it to that point probably have never tried cannabis. Like, I mean, they're type A kind of people, and they have been doing things by the book their entire life. And this one's a new book. So basically, we get people showing up, with all kinds of unique use cases, whether it's cancer, whether it's PTSD or back pain or spinal stenosis, and all kinds of, you name it. It's like there are people that are just sick of being on every pill, that are sick of not having an option, that just want to find a glimmer of hope somewhere in something. With, cannabis may or may not be that for them. And so like, those are the kinds of people that we do get. And to some degree, that is a lot of our population. So I mean, it's cool because there's so much cannabis and medicine meat on the bone there that I think is just overlooked a lot. And I know it started as medicinal cannabis, and you did that for 10 years. So obviously you can give me so much more context of that. It's crazy to see it from like a healthcare facility operation kind of wise. Cause once you're out there as a community pharmacist, like, I mean, when it's COVID season or cold and flu season, everybody's in there asking you about COVID. Everybody's in there asking you about their coughing and sneezing. Like, so cannabis is just another thing where it's like, okay, this might be its little thing for a while, where it's like people are buzzing on this thing, and like we got to generate like a good value add back into that as the pharmacy. Because I mean, I'm doing like cannabis consultations as a pharmacist from every day from like 10 to 11. And so we block out time to try to actually give people like a good medication review. So people come in there and they may think like, I can't take this medicine and cannabis, or can I take this medicine and cannabis safely? Or
that's going to be a question I was going to have, because that's really important, because there is some adverse effects when it comes to the certain, compounds and stuff. So that's good.
Yes, exactly. So basically, I mean, there's certain drugs like blood thinners. Warfarin is a huge one. I mean, even ibuprofen can affect the way cannabis is absorbed in the body. And it's worth just randomly, at least if you're going to have a little audit on that. Most people don't even have audits on their meds. That people that take chronic meds, I'm saying, like, I mean, anywhere a couple meds, like, they probably don't have somebody that's going to sit there and try to give a single plain view of glass audit on that, like in their lives mainly. Like if their caregiver does, it's great. They have a good track on it. But I mean, as pharmacists, we are trained to literally like do, medication reconciliation. We're looking at polypharmacy, poly providers, trying to give you like one good, safe lens of, all right, if you're using X, Y, and Z doctors for pain, X, Y, and Z doctor for sleep, X, Y, and Z doctor for internal medicine, and maybe there's some drugs that kind of overlap there, and you want to use cannabis, like what is the real problem going on here? So we will just have open conversations with people, open-ended questions. We're just interview style, like just making sure that we cover all the grounds. Like I've had multiple times where cannabis is not even an option coming out of the room with patients. And it's odd that that becomes sometimes a situation, but I mean, those will be realities of it. I would just be like, yeah, I would prefer you wait until after your surgery, like anesthesia and cannabis. I mean, you guys probably heard this, but obviously, like, right, you don't want to do it a couple of days before your surgery. It can affect the way that anesthesia goes into your body. I mean, who would want to have surgery and not be under or have one of those effects? So I mean, yeah, I'd rather be, probably better to just be off your cannabis for a couple of days and stuff like that. So making sure we get all the people safely taken care of and accommodated for that are in those realms of life. I think that's there's just so much there. We've got a patient right now who's in a skilled facility. They can keep the CBD gummies in the facility. They can't do the THC gummies in the facility. We are actually packing the gummies in a dose pack, unit pack. So it's like a unit dose pack. Basically, we put the gummies in a pack. We're labeling it with, take this one. This is your 12 o'clock dose. This is your 3 o'clock dose. And they are on that schedule. And we're just trying to work with he's got a provider there from, I think, the Verdes Foundation. Okay. And we're trying to sit there and just do dose adjustments and figure out how to treat, adult autism. And it's just, there's so much there. And there's people with cancer pain, nausea and vomiting associated with chemo and, HIV and AIDS and all kinds of stuff where synthetic cannabis such as dronabinol, like Marinol, the pill, or Epidiolex for CBD, synthetic, those are FDA approved for the certain conditions. And so granted, cannabis, the non-synthetic version is what's recreational and medically approved here. There's, so much to explore. And I think at least people should, especially when it comes to hospice or end of life care, people should have their options. People shouldn't have to hide, and families shouldn't have to be uncomfortable when it comes to that sort of use or providers.
Drama and everything during that time. It's a really horrible time. It's a grieving time. You shouldn't have to worry about a lot of things.
Yes, exactly. So, if you are institutionalized and your access to medicine is being limited just by pretty much federal law, it's frustrating because there are providers out there like us that are sitting there battling trying to figure out every single little workaround just to get you taken care of. And we'll do that until it's not a thing anymore. It's just a thing. It's just, we need more people on the cause for sure.
Yeah. You guys knocked down the first wall, yeah.
So there's a lot there.
Oh, definitely. You guys really, just knocked down that first initial wall that needed to come down. More people will follow. And I'm not sure when or how long that's going to take, but I know they will. Maybe people watching the podcast or someone will notice this and say, I'm going to do the same thing, especially here in New Mexico. Yes. Because obviously it's something you can do. I went to the dispensary yesterday and I picked up some cannabis and it was, really flavorful actually. And I actually really enjoyed it. And actually got like $5 off or something. So I thought that was pretty cool.
I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah, definitely. While we go on, you got to tell us the whole history of everything. And, it took a while, but I feel like it was important because we get a different perspective. You don't really get the pharmacist perspective every day in the cannabis world. And if you live in Cruces, you can go down and talk to them and get that. But if you live somewhere else or some other state or something, you don't get that all the time. You just get from what studies we found, what doctor you may have spoke to or what doctor hated cannabis or whatever. But, someone who works with it hand in hand. That's pretty beneficial, especially when it comes to, research too, in cannabis, because you went to UNM and they're doing a bunch of cool stuff up there, when it comes to cannabis and studies.
They are. And I hope to see it open up more. I hope to see them get more funding. Basically on our own end, we're trying to figure out how to accumulate and create our data and just get it in a better place for, good data use in terms of organizing where things go and how that all works. In terms of collaboration, I would hope that New Mexico State University, Mountain View, Memorial, like some of these hospitals that are big time health institutions in these towns, in this town, I mean, even the Burrell College could be, showing a little bit more interest. You've got young providers that are all working in these institutions, not only young, but, even your more veteran providers that really do need that education, because it starts from the top down. We need all of our entire community to be able to go to their doctor and their doctor be able to confidently understand what's going on in their medical history when it comes to cannabis or their current medical statuses. And I would say most doctors, obviously they do. I would just say, like, I think we can obviously all increase our levels of education. I mean, life is a learning process. We're never stopping learning. Pharmacists, doctors, we do CEs every single year. You just got to renew the continuing education. You got to continue to educate yourself. So cannabis is a new thing. So that's basically, my soapbox. Like, find a way to educate yourself. If you don't know, come on down, ask us. We'll get you connected.
Nice. And well, speaking about you guys, you said you're going to not carry like almost a limited amount of like different kind of cultivars and flower. What do you guys currently have right now?
So currently, I think the flower that we do have is from Don Verde Farm. So I definitely want to give those guys a shout out for sure.
Yeah.
So I think those are I think Indica and Sativa. I don't know the strains off the top of my head, unfortunately. And then we've got our product line of, we're doing gummies, tinctures, and topical. So we've got those, and then we've got extracts pretty much that we are using with, I think we've got a couple different providers right now on our extracts. We did like the farmer's quality as far as just where they're right, exactly. So we like kind of them and where the brand does look good there in the shop, and that it does seem to vet some good experience and everything like that. I've never talked to operators before, so I guess I can't sit there and say that I personally know anybody, but they've done a good job, and I stand behind their products being on our store. So other than that, like, that's fine. And basically, so we've got, our extract offerings, our flower offerings, we do our pre-roll manufacturing in there in-house, and then pretty much the edibles, topicals. And so I think right now, like, our biggest probably mover is like our gummies. And that's basically with our cannabis naive and cannabis curious population. Like, most of our people are, I break it down in another way too. Like, I almost feel like you either smoke or you don't when it comes to cannabis. Like, if you like to smoke, you're gonna like to smoke. Like, I don't think edibles just do it quite the justice for some, or for most that already prefer the inhaled, and or not. But maybe some people are seasonal and have different flavors at different times. But correct. So if you're cannabis confused and cannabis curious, you probably assume that those people probably do not smoke.
Yeah,
so that's where the gummies are just like, working for us now. But take care of all those people. If you see those people that are confused or curious and maybe, naive or not just understanding, like, it's worth asking, it's worth drawing that curiosity out of, your friends, your family members. If it's been so taboo for such a long period of time that it's just awkward to ask and talk about, just break the ice. I think it's worth it.
Yeah, I do too. And, one way to break that ice too and to kind of kill the stigma is, talking to them about microdosing. I'm sure you know what microdosing is and all that, coming from the field that you're in. Microdosing, is beneficial to a lot of people, especially people new starting out, because you're not smoking very much at all. You're just getting that your benefit. And I'm sure you can talk more about that.
Well, I'd be curious to talk about your perspective on that too. So from the way I don't have a true, like, personal inherent definition of microdosing, but we do coach up our patients in terms of everything, and our customers start with dosing to start low and go slow, especially like finding your dose is one of the key things in terms of, right, your cannabis education and how you're going to treat yourself. A lot of, especially for cannabis curious or cannabis naive, nobody wants to go too far on the other side of most things. And if you are going to find out if you're too far, you're going to have a backup. Are you going to have some CBD on the back end? Or you have a tincture or just some CBD product to mitigate the effects and attenuate the effects of the THC. But the data on the THC basically is anywhere above 2.5 milligrams of THC can technically induce a high. So, as you talk about microdose, right, you're trying to ideally shoot for less than 2.5 milligrams of THC, and or maybe for some people's body weight ratio, they can take it up a little bit, but that's like at least a good starting point. Cause it's like, at least data has shown 2.5 milligrams can make me feel high. That could be equivalent to 1 puff of a joint or a quarter of a 10 milligram edible, right? So basically, you need to just gauge where that gets you. Are you getting your symptom control that you're looking for in terms of if it's a medicine for you? And then go from there. And don't be afraid or don't be stingy about taking the dose up, because some people are really, really, really in tune. It's like, okay, you told them 2.5 and they go to like 3.0 and they're like, okay, it's not working for me. I'm done. And you're like, all right, well, you still got a lot of dosing there. And
Yeah.
I guess I try to give the safety perspective of you've really got 10 to 15 milligrams per kilogram of body weight dosing, that when you're looking at the FDA dosing of like dronabinol and Epidiolex, basically 10 to 15 milligrams per kilogram. If I'm a 100 kilogram guy, I could like safely take 1,000 milligrams, right? Like per dose. So when people are starting at the 2.5 milligram end, and I mean, you could safely be cranking it all the way up there. You've got a lot of room to work up, basically, is my point. So don't be afraid to kick it on. But at the same time, it's not like, oh, this is party time. Let's just go ahead and do whatever we're going to do. Like, we're starting low and going slow. And if you're cannabis curious or cannabis confused, like, I mean, have a journal, log how it made you feel, how much you took, what time, right? I'm sure cannabis veterans, I mean, for myself, right? Like, I personally have not needed to do that over my life, but I would coach people to do that. If some people are monitoring their blood pressure and they're out of control, you got to break it all the way back down to journaling and get your blood pressure knowing, so the doctor can know what you've been running at different times of day. Like, you just got to start collecting more data and just figuring it out.
Yeah.
So basically, that's what I mean. We are one person at a time, one disease state, one chief complaint at a time. But we've set up at least a little process to figure some things out with people. And either way, I think pharmacists as a community healthcare access, and especially with the community of New Mexico, we already have a doctor shortage and some bad health disparities as a whole. That it's a place where we are planning to remain to be for a while, and we hope to recruit more people. The water, come on in, the water's fine.
The city's not burning down, y'all. The school's not burning down either next to Notre Dame.
And for us being so close to like Texas and stuff, it's interesting because people can have dispensaries and you can be making hand over fist money without probably even hitting a lot of locals. And then there's just all kinds of different ways to do it. But even with those Texas people, take care of them. They're going back. They may or may not be a little cannabis confused or cannabis curious. Like, spread that knowledge, spread the knowledge is power. And I mean, in terms of what cannabis I think means to most people in the Grassy Logic podcast and the cannabis industry, like, we see it as a very positive thing for the world. And I mean, just got to keep chipping away at the stigma.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And thank you for that perspective that you gave, with the microdosing and everything. You kind of broke it down a little bit more than anybody really has ever told us. Because like, just microdose, you just do this and this, but you gave it more of a scientific breakdown. You quoted the studies and everything. 2.5 milligrams, anything higher than that kind of induces a high. And, that's probably good information for people listening. That's like new information, especially for me. I didn't know, that study in particular about the 2.5 milligrams and above. So, I mean, someone else listening might, that might help them too. Like, oh, okay, well, this 5 milligram gummy, I'm just going to cut it in half, and let's see how that makes me feel. So, that's something to keep in mind. And if you guys have questions, you can always, hit them up and they'll, I'm sure, help you out, phenomenally. Because, I'm learning a lot today. Just sitting here. And that's why
jabber here.
Yeah, no, it's fine. And you know what? And it's cool because I wanted everybody to have the education. That's what this show's about. And, you guys are playing an important role because you are the first one in the nation to do this. So, it's kind of like giving people like, well, this is how you do it. This is how we did it. And maybe someone else will come behind you very shortly.
Exactly. Like, it's not a big, perfect institutionalized process. We are a group of guys just trying to figure stuff, and girls trying to figure stuff out. And I mean, we're doing the best that we can. There's whatever else spurs from there. Like everybody keep doing good things, because I mean, right. Like, the big war is the war on opiates. It's like the war on diabetes, the war on stress, right? Like, let's get obesity out of the way. Obesity, right? Like, so, I mean, I think in terms of all that, like, cannabis is a nice little connector for a lot of that. And that's the good value that the industry really should be tapping into all the way.
I agree, 100%. And before we move on to everything else, this is going to be a long episode, guys. But I'll try to get everything else quick because I want everybody updated. Do you guys offer a veteran discount?
Yes, actually, indeed, we do. And thank you for bringing that up before the podcast. And we just wanted to make sure that we took care of that properly. So yes, 20% blanket discount for vets. If you do have a medical card, you won't be paying tax. Yeah. So please take that in mind. And also the other discount that we do have, we have daily deals. So if you shop on our online store, you'll be able to see our daily deals. But definitely for pediatrics with autism or autistic patients, we are aligned with the Whole Plant 4 Access Autism deal, WPA4HA, something like that. But basically, if you Google it and Whole Plant 4 Access, Autism Access, anyways, 50% off for autistic cannabis patients treating autism. So on everything. So if you guys know those people and you're looking for that service, then please at least know that we will definitely compensate that price and everything like that. And on top of that, highly encourage if anybody else in the state of New Mexico is an operator and they're not, catering to specific subsets of patients that may or may not be physically disabled or stuff like that. Like there's a lot of good places to have deals so that people can have more access to their cannabis. We've had people already, like providers from all the way from Florida, that were asking about particular blends, about THCA and all kinds of stuff. And I mean, there's only so far we can go within the realm of all the legal processes and everything, but it's crazy to see how many, because you can get really personalized, and there's over 200. It's like, think of Sonic, right? Like how many flavors at Sonic? I mean, just in some sort of like perspective, like how many different combinations, and you've got 200 different phytocannabinoids there. And then you've got all kinds of every other medicine ever, plus every like food and disease state to cross-examine it against. Like there's just a lot going on. I mean, yeah, for sure.
Nice. Yeah. And, I appreciate that. And the explanations just keep coming out. You're just you have a lot of knowledge and you're just willing to share that with people. And that's great, because some people just like, yeah, that's cool. And then they don't really want to share what they know. And it's great that you're willing to do that. So yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you again for joining me today. We're just going to move on to the rest of the podcast.
I'll shut up.
You don't have to shut up. But we're going to move on to the rest of the podcast. Thank you so much for, the history and everything, and just, informing the public even more. And it's great. So, Joaquin Acosta, everybody, thank you again. Excuse me, Dr. Joaquin Acosta.
Yes. Dr. Quiet for the next.
So anyway, we're going to move on to the next topics. I'm going to try to blaze through this, guys. I just want everybody kind of updated what's going on. This first one I actually found out this morning. So it looks like the CCD, or the Cannabis Control Division, they're going to be promoting small businesses in the state when it comes to cannabis. And so I find that to be really great that they're doing that. That's something that you don't really hear any state really doing, promoting the small businesses, especially when it comes to cannabis. And the way that they're going to do it is going to have a one-of-its-kind logo that you're going to be able to put on your products for the micro business.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and so it's, to me, it kind of reminds me of the New Mexico True thing, where with the green chili, like this is actually grown in New Mexico, kind of like that label. I kind of feel it's going to be like that. They're calling it the NMLegis BIZ logo. And I guess it's going to help consumers identify, who is a small businesses versus the, bigger like Swazi, which is our green leaf, if you guys don't know. It's going to be able to, to define those. Now, if they do it right, they'll be able to help the small businesses. But if something goes wrong, then the bigger businesses will be able to get that logo somehow, I'm sure. So hopefully they do it right. That way people won't lose trust in the system, because we know someone's going to do it.
I guess I could see it hopefully spurring economy, because maybe bigger businesses want to carry products that have that logo on it.
Yeah, maybe, like, hey, like, I want your product in my store. You're a small business. That, that's a good way to put it. I didn't even think of that, and that might be a better way to promote the smaller businesses to the bigger businesses, So yeah, I agree with that. If you guys are a small business, a micro business, and you are curious if you qualify for this or if you want it, the contact would be Autumn Marquez, and her email is autumn.marquez@rld.nm.gov. And her last name is Marquez, for those who have, a problem spelling, Spanish last names. So yeah, they're going to verify your status, and from there you can figure everything out. I just wanted to give you guys the information on that. I think it's something great for the industry. It's something small, but I think it's something that in the long run will be, beneficial, especially for the reason that, you brought up, which is, really great. So thank you for that. So moving on again, that's pretty much all that was. I just wanted to get the information out. So if you guys wanted to apply for that, you could. Looks like the Department of Justice is supporting U.S. sentencing commission proposal. Pretty much, they want judges to have the option to not give people bare minimums, because on a federal level, there's a bare minimum that they have to give you, and I think it's 10 years. So if you get a federal charge, I think it's at a certain amount, they have to give you. They have no choice but to give you that bare minimum, and they kind of want to promote to the judges like, all right, we don't want you to do the bare minimums. Kind of go base by base. This is only for possession. It's not for selling. So if you guys are selling, then you're still kind of screwed as usual. So it's good because that is progress on the federal side, because they were stating that they wanted to kind of match what President Biden had said, with the whole decriminalization thing. Well, letting people out of jail and prison who have the charge just for possession, even though there's nobody right now. So that's good to see and good to hear. I mean, what are your kind of thoughts on that?
I guess it's a step in the right direction, right? I mean, ideally we need decriminalization and descheduling, but we're getting there. And yeah, I mean, might as well, let's not incarcerate people by any means for things.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Stupid things like that. And I agree, we need to deschedule, and instead of just like reschedule. Because if you deschedule, then it's going to be easier for the market to kind of thrive, especially the way that the states have been doing it. If we go with a different model, then a bunch of people are just going to end up losing their money, and the industry's just going to tank, altogether. So yeah, we got to do it right. So moving on from that, guys. Yeah, some of these are short. I just wanted to get the information out. I knew these parts were going to be short. So the New Mexico sales, looks like last month our sales were up to $40.1 million. So it's a little bit higher than it was in January. December and January, we saw kind of a lower amount of sales, but I mean, it was the holidays. People spent a lot of their money on presents and stuff, as they usually do.
Tapped
so
out.
Yeah, everything was tapped out. So now people are starting to get the funds back. You're hitting the tax refund season. So, now people have a little bit more money to spend. And it looks like almost 14 million of that came from the medical side. And the rest of it, 27 million, a little bit, about 27.5 million came from the rec side. If you guys don't know, New Mexico medical cannabis is not taxed, only rec cannabis is taxed. So only 27.6 million of that is going to go to the state for taxable. But in New Mexico, it's actually law that if it's a medicine, it's not taxed. It's like they actually went to like a state court for that, and they actually ruled that you can't tax cannabis in New Mexico. We don't know what to tell you. So that's good. It's good to see that the sales are still up. We're kind of sitting here at this little table. We're up a little bit this month, but we haven't gone tanked down, so that's good. Texas is probably the reason that's helping us.
Thank you, Texas. Tip my cap,
Thank y'all. I'll do a little boot dance for y'all tonight. So how many Texas, patients, I guess you can call them too. How many Texas customers do you guys really get on a daily basis?
Weird. They're few and far between. Probably if they are there like on the farmers market during the weekend, and you just end up downtown and you're looking for a place to go, we may pick up some of that traffic, but not a whole lot of people going this deep into downtown Las Cruces to a pharmacy for cannabis. But I mean, I come on down. We hope to make it a cool place for somebody to want to see at the very least. But.
Yeah, no, I thought it was really cool. I walked in, the shop's still kind of being put together, it's still getting there.
Yes. April 15th is our grand opening for the dispensary officially. So it's been very softly open. And basically, as he alluded to there, we are putting in some big time efforts to try to make it like a very worthy grand opening in store to walk into, rather than just a kind of just not a dingy storefront for us by any means, but just like the effort's got to be there. Like if you're going to sell something, you got to sell it. Like,
exactly.
That's how it has to be.
Yeah, exactly. And I really like the setup of just the pharmacy itself. You walk in and you have like the shelves of the regular stuff, the over-the-counter medication too, along with, as well as the snacks. And then you have the drinks along the wall. So it kind of gives you that feel like you're not picking up medicine. Like, okay, I kind of feel like I'm in a cool gas station, like something a little more relaxing, because when you go to a pharmacy, you don't feel great. You're like, oh man, I don't want to be here. But you go in there and you're like, okay, this isn't bad. You see all the friendly faces, and you see the door over there in the hall, with the, the cannabis. I forget what the door says. Does it say cannabis?
It says dispensary.
Dispensary. That's what it says. It says dispensary on the door. And you see that and you're like, okay, this is cool. It just has a total different vibe that you've really seen in a pharmacy ever, or that I've ever seen too. And I've seen a few, even, federal government ones on the Army side. Those aren't fun. But it's great to see that. And you guys, your posts on social media are great too. Like you even promote the Plan B pill, and I feel that's kind of important for, certain people when it comes to, your health and, sexual reproductive. You should have that choice. And, you guys are really promoting that. Like, no, if that happens, we have it, come get it. So, it's good to see that.
That's truly I think, at least for us to be less political about it, I think in terms of just whatever healthcare purposes that we serve, healthcare access is already a huge problem. And I think leaning into the fact that we can just provide that is great. I know Walgreens just withdrew out of California actually because of an issue just because of that. And it's just interesting to see that. So, I mean, they can do whatever they're going to do, but New Mexico has created a nice progressive environment for pharmacy to thrive in that sense. So we'll use that to wherever we can. Like I have prescriptive authority to prescribe birth control. I have prescriptive authority to give vaccines, tobacco cessation, and so basically we can truly actually like help with those without you having to go directly to the doctor and make appointments and do all kinds of stuff. So people that have a one-off birth control appointment where you've been on stuff where you already know what you're on, like all kinds of stuff like that is obviously very easy meat on the bone to where you may not need to go for hundreds of dollars to a doctor to go do all that stuff and then wait for that, especially if you're going to be missing your pills for a couple of days to even be able to get to that point. So I think there's a lot of cool niches to be able to offer all of those services auxiliary wise that pharmacies do. So like maybe you probably guys don't know that pharmacists can prescribe birth control in the state of New Mexico. And basically that's because like Walgreens and CVS do not let their pharmacists work to the top of their license, like literally.
Okay.
I mean, sense. Because other states don't allow that either. So it's like, how do you make policies per specific states? I mean, I don't see how it's that hard, but they would rather just use all their staff here as like slaves to just generate back to their C-suites. So
and that's something good to know. I had no clue about that, that aspect of it. You guys are allowed. And if one of the listeners are listening and you need that and you want to feel a little more confident, head down to Mesilla Valley Pharmacy and, they'll take care of you in a professional manner on top of that too. So that's good to hear. And, it's a little more relieving to go somewhere and it's not like so stressful when you walk in. That's the best way I could put it. It's like not stressful when you walk in.
Maybe you see my face and you see it stressed, but that's the only person that should be stressed in there.
And he's stressed for y'all, so it's for a benefit. So I really appreciate that. Before the show, he was really worried that he wasn't going to be able to, add more to the show, but you're adding a lot more than you thought initially. So that's great. Thank you. So moving on to the next thing, we're going to talk briefly about the Essie Awards. If you guys don't know, New Mexico does have a set of different award ceremonies for the cannabis industry. The Essies has been around since I think around 2017 or so, and they've just been really kind of just allowing the industry and the patients to vote. So they go and they have a form. You go online, you vote who's the best dispensary, who's the best bud tender. When I was a part of the New Mexico Medical Cannabis Patients Advocacy Alliance, we actually won best advocacy like 3 times in a row.
Oh, cool.
Through the whole time that we were in advocacy, we won every year. And then we've won awards for other stuff too, but that was one of the the bragging rights that I've won an Essie, and we've gone up there, had to say thanks and all that good stuff. But we did the Essies, and the reason why it's called the Essies is because it's actually named after one of the first patients, or actually the first patient in our newest program, because we had one in the 70s to the 80s, and her name was Essie DeBonnet was her name. And I think I always butcher her name. I think everybody gets mad at me. I think Valerie's going to slap me when she watches this. But she was an elderly advocate patient, and she fought really hard to get the first, program open. And they set this award over with her name on it to honor her and every patient that came, before us and everything. Because there's a lot of patients that fought hard. I mean, the Lynn and Eric Compassionate Use Act is named after 2 patients that really fought hard to get cannabis passed in New Mexico. And so, it's in the name of the law, it's the spirit is there. So it's great that, we do something like that. The only thing I wish is that they kind of told everybody every year who Essie really was, because they just kind of think it's just the name of the award.
Honor her.
Yeah, like it's just honor her. Yeah, it's like who is she? So it'd be kind of nice if they did a little historical thing like before the event or something like that, just to tell who Essie was. So I think it'd be good because she was an AIDS patient. And, she was suffering in the 2000s. She was very vocal back then. So I want to congratulate all the winners is really the reason why I brought this up. So congratulations to all of you who won an Essie award. If you didn't, there's always next year. This is such a new industry that, some people aren't even up and going yet. So I say it about the next 3 years, we'll see a big change. And, if you didn't win this year, maybe you're going to win the next 3 years, like we did with the advocacy. So that's great to see. We do have some other award ceremonies in the state. There's the Dink magazine. They usually do one. I've won one of those awards. And then we have the New Mexico Growers Cup here in the South, if you're down in the South, since we're talking about it. That's normally over in Otero County. I'm not too sure where they're going to do it this year. They have a Facebook page and a following and everything. You just look it up, New Mexico Growers Cup. That's pretty much where just licensed folks and then home growers and everybody, they all, put their products in to compete for the best flour, the best edibles, extract, et cetera, and they all get a little, thing at the end for bragging rights. So if that's something that you're into, you want to compete, you want that award to put on your shelf in your dispensary, by all means, these are all award ceremonies that you can apply for and, be a part of. And sometimes people just nominate you. You don't even have to nominate yourself.
Those are cool.
Yeah. So, and I think that we need to do something more, down here in the South for this. And someone was telling me, so, if someone wants to get that going, do it. So, what is your, thoughts on this anyway?
Well, I think that's awesome. And it kind of had spurred many other thought that had branched off too, was kind of having just a central, almost as we've talked about data again, but like a central place to see like different dispensaries, deal days, cross-examined against each other. If everybody could like just go to some place and post on, like, I don't know, like a Facebook group or something, and like just have it all consolidated there for all your New Mexico local shoppers, right? Like, I know that people have, I've been approached with the idea of, hey, do you want to come into like a kind of a cohort of like, let's all show our deals together at like different stores in Las Cruces so that everybody knows, like maybe you're particularly shopping for one thing on one day and something that somebody else has that you don't, or whatever particular thing. And I just, as that is super cool, like it's cool to know what everybody else has or doesn't have. Like I would love to, join the friendly competition in there and, meet people who care about what they do and stuff like that. So I think that's totally cool. It's easier on both sides because as we do our own products, I'd rather align with brands and other people that like actually care about what they do and what goes into that. So, events like that where people can congregate, I think is a great opportunity to find, and align with other people in the industry that are like-minded for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And here at the Ask Chad Grassy Logic podcast, I try to get you guys updated and keep you updated on those kind of events. So, I've talked about the, Southwest Trade Association one that they're having next month. And actually, April is going to be a very busy month. I might just start doing posts on my page with all the events going on.
Slap it down.
So many. And if you guys have any, send me the stuff and I'll post it on mine. But yeah, it's going to be
okay. Sorry, he's probably been doing it the whole time. I'm so unplugged sometimes that I don't know. But I will put your resource out to our patients too, because it's worth having. We have a community wall of promoting everybody's business, and I think obviously on the same end of just cannabis specific, I think it's good to promote other local businesses and kind of collaboration over competition to those respective regards. I think there's totally cool room for that.
Yeah. And one thing that I really took when I worked at Apple, or my short time working at Apple, was we're better together.
Yes.
And I agree with that wholeheartedly, as a country and even as an industry. We are better if we work together. And yes, there is some competition in this, but at the end of the day, we're better off if we work together and try to make this industry what it can be, the potential. Because as I've said several times, we could be, the poster child when it comes to cannabis regulation because of the way that we've gone about it, and so we can continue that. So anyway, moving on, speaking about laws and stuff, let's get everybody the New Mexico legislative update. And I know you told me that you're not too keen on the legislative stuff and everything, but, I'm sure there's a few things that'll affect you, in your business that, you could comment on.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just a comment. Comments are completely my own. Like, we are not, as far as the law, this is a fine young angel of a man that can sit there and really advocate for the laws all the time. And that's my full endorsement on that for sure, because I wish we could spend time the same in terms of that. But I do advocate. I'm down to give my comments and everything for sure. As far as if somebody quotes me for a put your money where your mouth is kind of thing, we're doing the best that we possibly can.
Yeah,
we will show the light to anything we possibly can.
And sure. I'm no lawyer, guys, so I do my best too, but I've been doing this for many years, and I've been pretty much, this is my football seasons during the legislative season. I watch the the streams and all that. So
awesome.
But so there was a news article that I saw today, and it's let's unwrap this. And the headline was New Mexico committee blocks cannabis safety legislation. So there's a bill in itself, and it was HB 157, and it was shot down 3-3. And so here in the state, if it's a tie, it loses. So what it was pretty much just helping the children with the packaging, trying to ensure that the kids aren't going to get cannabis, and just trying to change things in the industry to, like, I think it was mostly the packaging is what they're worried about, or just to ensure kids aren't going to get it. But one thing that I saw in the lack of in the article is they didn't tell you where the cannabis that these kids are getting from, because in the article they stated that, oh, these kids are getting it from this school and this school, and at the school they're getting this, but they don't tell you that it was at black market, or did they get it from daddy's cabinet, or was it on the counter and mom didn't put it away correctly. They don't tell you those little minute things, and that's kind of missing. So keep that in mind when you read these. When it comes to regulation, a lot of the issues that we have with kids getting cannabis is from the black market, and a lot of the black market cannabis is coming from Oklahoma, Colorado, and California. Very rarely is it Washington, Oregon. Oregon, yeah, a little bit more than Washington. So that bill did die. However, in HB 313, there is language, and actually the amendment the other day, and I said opaque being clear. I meant opaque means you can't see through it. I mixed it up in my head. They added an amendment on there where the packaging has to be opaque and some other stuff for kids. So that could affect, you as a business, I guess, having to have opaque packaging in the 313. But, this being shot down, it's a blow, I guess. They're worried about the kids, but at the same time, I just kind of felt like it was what about the children kind of thing, like, oh, let's make it more restrictive for the cannabis people because we're worried about the kids. But in reality, the issue is that the kids aren't being watched, by the people who take care of them. So I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I guess I just don't necessarily. I mean, there's probably particular regulation that I think would be beneficial, but I don't think it hits the heart of the problem, which would be like, just youth, what goes on at home and things like from there. I mean, just generally, there's a lot in terms of raising youth that I think, just interventionally, that New Mexico can be better. I guess our United States of America can be better, but it starts at home for sure. Like, people got to get right on that.
Yeah, and if you are part of the black market, guys, shame on you for selling to kids. It's not right. Don't do that. That's all I'm going to say on that. And then now we're going to move on to the next bill, HB 242. It's the medical cannabis renewal ID thing. So what it does is, right now, your cards are good for 3 years, but you still have to have kind of like an official doctor visit with your doctor every year. What this does is it jumps it down to 2 years. It's good, but your doctor only has to tell the state that they're seeing you and this and that. There's not like this whole official form thing that you have to fill. It's kind of like a renewal. That's what it felt like every year. It's like, I'm doing a renewal. But this kind of makes it feel less like a renewal, and you get that benefit of the 2 years because you're not like stuck going to the doctor. The doctor just has to confirm that they're still seeing you, that the cannabis is still working, and that you're still, are prescribing or recommend cannabis for them for what they're dealing with. That one actually passed the House and the Senate and is headed off to the governor for signature. So I see that as kind of a benefit. I kind of wish they kept the 3-year component on there, but it went to 2. This actually didn't have any amendments to it. It went in clean. I mean, it went in and no one, I guess, had any issues with it because I didn't see any amendments for it. Which is interesting because normally you have at least one amendment on most bills, or someone have an issue, but it got all due passes and it went right on through and it's right onto the governor's desk for signature. So that was actually really interesting. What do you think about that? I mean, I know you guys deal with cards and stuff, and you partner with someone.
So we do. Basically, we have a couple people that are businesses that we associate with to do that. Basically, One Salute is one of them, and we basically are like a hub for the form collection, and as well as Destino Bella. So those providers from those clinics will do basically like online consultation so long as the patient fills out that form at our pharmacy, and then we just distribute it back accordingly. And so they'll make the appointment and get patients renewed. That was a nice little thing that we had learned. I mean, shout out to High Horse actually on that, because they were the ones who had initially showed us that this was ever a thing and that we're willing to just create that service and let us be a part of it. So that was awesome. And basically, it's nice to see providers that are starting to kind of see the benefits of it. And not only on the benefit side for just taking care of the patients, but there is monetary gain for providers to bill the insurance for treating for the appointment of medical cannabis, and the insurance pays them for their appointment at just as the same units and whatever that they do on their other medical billing, and they can continue on with their lives. And it's incorporated, it's justified.
Because you're not getting cannabis, you're just getting a doctor visit. You're not even getting a card that goes to the state. So yeah, it's like you're literally just going to the doctor to fill out a form. That's like literally all it is. And so I mean,
and
like
the doctors were scared to give the form.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
other thing.
Yeah, and like for a long time there was a lot of taboo, and especially like when I joined the program in 2013. I mean, I had to. It took me a long time to find a doctor that actually prescribed cannabis in the first place. And when I did, it cost me probably $400 in total.
Because they knew it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They knew it back then. And these days it's a little different, but back then, yeah, it was a little bit different. So, and I kind of figured something like this would affect your guys' businesses, with working with them, or, it might change things a little bit.
Anything that can make it more convenient for people. Like, it's nothing that we even considerably care to need to make a lick on, but I want people to have the medical cannabis cards. It just makes life easier for what we're doing, for sure.
Stop paying taxes.
Yes, exactly. And stop paying the taxes on it, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a secret. You don't have to pay taxes if you have a medical cannabis card.
It's a medicine. It's very,
and you get actually more protections legally. You do get those work protections, which do need some tweaking. And actually, I'll jump down to the work protections. So the bill that changes a position to the safety sensitive position, meaning that it's only going to be a safety sensitive position if it's if you have to carry a weapon. That one hasn't seen the floor yet. So I'm not sure if it's going to pass, and I don't think it will, which is unfortunate because I feel like that component needed to be added more than most anything, because there's a lot of people I know personally who are being affected by this because they'll apply for a job and then they won't get it because, oh, you have a medical cannabis card, and then they'll just say it's safety sensitive, for whatever reason. You have to write with a pencil. You might stab yourself in the eye or something really stupid. So that kind of worries me. We actually might not see this bill pass until 2025 because next year is a 30-day session. Every other year, it switches between a 30 and a 60-day session. We're on a 60-day session this year. Next year will be 30, so our next 60-day session will be 2025. There's a possibility that next year it could pass. They could rocket docket it. I guess it's a term that they kind of coined here in New Mexico, is where they just pass it through legislature as fast as possible. Only maybe one or two committees in the House and Senate, and that's about it. And they just push it through. That's kind of what they did when we passed recreational cannabis. We had the special session, and they pretty much rocket docketed it, through a couple of committees. I remember watching all of them. It was hell. But I mean, this right here, I'm a little sad that it didn't pass. I don't know how about you?
Basically, in terms of, I didn't know this safety sensitive position existed, but the context that I kind of understood the workplace rights and the Americans with Disabilities Act rights on that was obviously a super big time gray area that, it sounded like most companies wouldn't want to go to war with that when you have that in front of you. And obviously, I'm sure you can find ways where the argument makes sense. Doing it blatantly at work or whatever, being under the influence in terms of the way your job is not supposed to have, you're not supposed to be, of course, you're breaking the rules there. But in terms of medicine and that part, it's right. I don't know what the safety sensitive position is. It sounds like that the corporate, that's just a way to really kind of try to protect yourself on that side for somebody that's trying to protect themselves with the medical card. So it's all right, here's your check and mate kind of thing. But I mean, from what I was aware in these might be completely off or whatever, because I don't have the exact cases, but UNMH has lost this battle before. Pretty sure that Walmart doesn't want to go with this battle, and they've refused to actually go on the battle, and people don't even bat an eye. So I heard Sandia didn't want to go to battle with this.
Oh, really?
But I haven't heard anything about White Sands. I haven't heard anything about other federal institutions, but I've heard of people with enough gumption that have challenged that and have not been fired. Basically.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know where that safety sensitive clause is, and I don't know if that safety sensitive clause ever was enough to begin with if people had the right argument. Basically,
it was actually changed when we initially changed the medical cannabis program. It was added in there, and it was kind of, I felt like it wasn't strong enough then.
Okay.
I felt the language wasn't strong enough because I was like, well, then they can just say any position, safety sensitive position, and everyone's screwed, And then now the argument they're using is, well, we can't tell if you're high at work. And to me, that still doesn't make sense and shouldn't be used. It's kind of discriminatory still. They're assuming that you're always going to be high because you have a medical cannabis card, which isn't the case.
So then exactly at that point, it's null and void. It doesn't matter if you've got your medical card, right? It's you're not inebriated anymore because, right? And that, like, I mean, unless you were going to get on like some sort of machinery and equipment that has literally been like completely, like, that's a technical job that you cannot, like, I don't know, that you cannot do. I don't know how you vet that. Like, I don't know how you vet that.
Yeah, because those guys drink a lot of the times. Those guys are usually drunk.
Exactly.
Yeah, because let's be honest, a lot of the dudes that do stuff like that, they drink.
So that's no, exactly. That's where I would also say exactly. Like, there's other substances other than cannabis.
Yeah.
It's like, but yeah. So you've got the medical protections. I don't think it should even be an argument as to whether or not you are high at work, as long as you don't make it a problem with smells and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And don't be like inebriated to the point where you can't function and do your job.
And that's what this bill kind of codified too. It said that, as long as you're not, medicated at work, and it's up to your employer too. If your employer says, if you need medicated at work, please go ahead. It's not a worrisome. That's up to your employer. But this law would have given the option to, do this, but you just won't be high at work, or you can't be high at work. And it also specified that a safety sensitive position is if you are using heavy machinery, or if you have to carry a gun for your work, if you're a cop, or if you're like a security guard, an armed security guard.
See, that's cool. At least it defines some lines there. I don't necessarily know what to say that medicine can't treat this job differently than that job, because that's just Americans with Disabilities Rights fiasco in and of itself. So,
and I think a lot of people are too afraid to sue, or they're too poor to sue, especially in the state. Now, that's what I've been running into, is people just don't have the funds to sue these, the city, or sue the state, and no one's taken it up pro bono either. So we just haven't seen the courts challenge this yet.
Fair.
Yeah. And so until the courts challenge this, and I'm looking at all my viewers, someone should challenge this. This is probably going to stick, and more people are going to probably get discriminated against. So it's going to probably take the course. Yeah, better call Saul. What was the name of his mascots? He went to like a University of Samoa or something. Was it the coconut crabs? He was like, "Go coconut crabs!" Oh, that's great. So that's it for HB 292. We're gonna go to the last thing on this, guys. I know it's a long episode, but there was so much packed into this, and I wanted to get it out to you guys. So this last one is kind of important. And if you could bring it up on the screen for me. So Texas wants to add checkpoints going from New Mexico into Texas. So not only do in the South, we have to worry about southern New Mexico, like federal checkpoints, literally any direction you go outside of Las Cruces. Now you'll have to worry about, just driving down. And sometimes your neighbor in Texas, New Mexico is in Texas, and you're in New Mexico. So I'm not too sure how they're going to do this, because you have Anthony, you have Gaston, all these other, Santa Teresa and Sunland Park, that they're literally Texas, New Mexico. They're both. And so I'm not too sure how they would go about this. And what they would do is they would set up checkpoints on all public roads leaving New Mexico into Texas. And it would be to look for narcotics or breaking any other law, i.e. abortion. So what this bill is geared to, mostly, from what I got anyway, that's my personal opinion, is that they're trying to crack down on cannabis coming to Texas for whatever reason, just legalize it already. And they're trying to crack down on abortions leaving Texas. So when you're coming back, they're trying to figure out if you got an abortion. So to me, this seems like they're violating a lot of rights. I'm no lawyer, but this just seems terrible.
Yeah, that's a lot to unfold there. I mean, minus the, I guess, political commentary there, that just seems to be a little invasive.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, very. I mean, it's you not doing anything other than being from New Mexico, and that's kind of crappy and shitty, because we have the word Mexico in our name, so we already have that going against us. And now we go to Texas, and it's like, oh great, now I really feel like I'm not a citizen. And so now we get that. And keep this in mind, guys. This isn't law. This is introduced by Representative Ken King of District 88 in Texas. So if you happen to be from Texas, he happens to be a representative, call him and give him a very stringent email. Don't cuss at people, guys. If you talk to representatives, no one wants to deal with that. They're still people. Just give them some respect that they're going to give you. Just don't cuss at them. It doesn't help. So it was introduced by him. So if that happens to be him, or if he's not, and you just want to email him to tell you that you just disagree with this, then by all means, that's your right. This bill to me doesn't seem like it will pass, because there's a lot of funds that would need to go into this. Like Texas would have to use so much of its funds for this, and I feel like there would be so little that would come to it, because there is components in this that they have to have probable cause, or if they feel like you are breaking the law kind of thing, then they could. And who knows if they even have the staffing, the police staffing, to even do something like this. lawsuits, you know?
Right. It seems like that's the closest thing they could have ever done to breaking off, being their own Texas Lone Star country at that point. Like,
Yeah.
you're regulating what's coming in, what's coming out, all
Yeah.
over, who's coming in, who's coming out. Like, I mean,
it's crazy. And if you guys look at the screen, I have the bill up there. You can read it for yourselves and everything that it says. Not everything, you know, it's kind of cut off because I got this from Twitter. I told you guys I get some of the best information from Twitter. And you can read it for yourselves. You know, as I said, this is just introduced. It hasn't had its committee hearing. I think it was just introduced yesterday. So I'm not too sure how many committees it's in or, you know, what it's going to happen. I doubt it's going to pass. And if it does, I see a lot of lawsuits happening from it. What direction they're going to go, I have no clue. But I do see this as an uphill battle if anything passes with it. But I really don't. I see it as a long shot. Of course, it's improbable, not impossible. You know, just like most things in life, you know. So I don't know. Like, how would you feel, you know, having to live here and do that? Because, you know, we'd be directly affected by this.
yeah, I suppose I mean, I would be really shocked if that was the case. That's, I mean, yeah, like that's a crazy dividing line between pretty much like, yeah, that would be like a divisive line that Texas decides to draw. I mean, I couldn't see it any other way. As entrepreneurial as, you know, Governor Abbott seems to be, like, I know he was pretty hot on crypto, and that we know where crypto is now. And I mean, I think he should look at some of that economic, you know, $40 million that we made last month. That 27 million of it probably came from his state.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. And they're missing out on that because they could make fist over hand over fist, and we don't.
Make your money, and you don't have to have the checkpoints, and, you know, go on into the newer, better world versus like taking like 15 steps back.
Yeah, you know, this is a step I've never seen before, to be honest. Like, this is like, whoa, you might as well just become your own country by now, buddy. Like, if you're gonna do that, just go ahead and break it off. So yeah, and if that's the case, El Paso, we'll take you. You know, you belong to us anyway. That's a story for another day. But yeah, that's all I had for the Texas checkpoint things. And do you have anything else for that?
No, I know checkpoints are a problem already, as far as just for the New Mexicans and the New Mexico operators and New Mexico patients in general. So basically, yeah, like, it's still federally illegal, so they can still technically, you know, impose their will if they really wanted to, even though, you know, there's obviously a mutual understanding of what's going on there. But that's the kind of creepy part about it, and everything else. And
unfortunately,
it chokes out stuff for sure.
And if you guys didn't know, the Supreme Court came down and said that actually within 100 miles of any border within the United States, the Border Patrol actually has authority to do warrantless searches. So they can just come to your house and search your house if they want. So living within 100 miles of the border, we really don't have as many rights as someone else who lives just above the border. And that's unfortunate, because we shouldn't have different rights in different parts of the country just because we choose to live where some of our families have lived for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So, you know, my family was included in that. You know, they were given two options: stay here and become American citizens, or go back to Mexico and, you know, start over there. So we know what option they took.
Red pill or blue pill, like Morpheus.
Exactly. So, but anyway, guys, that is it for this week's episode of #Grassy Logic. I'm sorry it was so long. Maybe you guys enjoyed the long show, but there was just so much to unpack and so much information that, you know, Joaquin was giving us that I couldn't stop it. So enjoy the long episode. I'll be back next week with another episode, new titles, new topics, and a new co-host. But I mean, I'm really glad that you joined me today. There was so much information. You know, I learned so much. And I hope you learned a little bit too about the, you know, the legal process, or the, you know, how laws are made. And, you know, I can't wait to see what comes from the future from you guys, you know, and congratulations on being the first pharmacy to sell, you know, cannabis in the nation.
Thanks, man. Thanks for putting us on the Grassy Logic podcast today. I appreciate the reach out, and everything that you guys within the whole Adam's Radio Group, if I'm correct.
Yeah, Adam's Radio Group's the one who,
So appreciate shout out to Adam's Radio Group and everything like that for you know, everything that they're doing. These guys are grinding hard. So
and helping us out. And Gino, my producer over here, shout out to you, man. You're working hard.
So fine young man back here too. Exactly.
Right, exactly. And before we go, Can you give everybody the address maybe? I forgot to ask you that.
Oh,
earlier.
absolutely. So, Mesilla Valley Pharmacy, we are at 227 South Main Street. We're going to be doing our grand opening ribbon cutting on Saturday, April 15th. The ribbon cutting is at 11. Starting at 9 a.m., we are going to be giving out free cups of coffee. The first 150 cups of coffee from Travelin' Tom's coffee truck are going to be free to the first 150 people. So definitely more reason to come on down and check out the health fair and the free coffee and all the other cool stuff that we will have pretty much there. So definitely want to hype that up because that's like all I can think about right now, but for sure. So thanks again, Chad.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you coming on. So go down there and go get your legal drugs. All right, guys. Well, thank you. And I'll be back next week and we'll see you again.